if he wants to pop on, he can pop on. Right, we're live. I get a second or two. I normally sing at this point while we're waiting for everybody to come on. But do you know, it's so fascinating. I've been watching the videos that you've done on YouTube as well. And I am so fascinated by everything, the dowsing, how you, especially, I mean, I'm at the minute, I've been back into it now, but just dowsing rods, I'm a bit, because my hands aren't steady enough, I do shake a little bit, so I find it better with pendulum. But yeah, I just can't wait for you to start talking. Evening Rachel, Chelsea, Nanny Lane, evening Paul, Anne, Diane, Michelle. I don't know if can you see everybody on side, Maria, in comments?
No.
Should be somewhere on StreamYard, and it'll say comments in corner, and I think you have to sort of. If not, don't worry, because I can put ones up on screen anyway.
Yeah, I'll just go to them. Yeah, I've got them now. I've just clicked on it. Yeah, I didn't see
marvelous.
that before.
No. Evening, Diane, Yolanda, Moira. Moira's been waiting for this for 2 weeks. Look, where is she? Let's put Moira up. Been waiting for this chit chat.
Hi, Moira.
Evening, Andrew, Sheila, Susan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please share out, guys, and we'll try and get everybody joining us, because what Maria's got to talk about is just absolutely amazing. I'm fascinated, and she's only just told me a little bit. Yes. So, Maria, do you want to introduce yourself? And shall we talk about the elongated skulls first, and then sort of like work down?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah. Well, I'll just introduce myself to everyone, and thank you, John and Lindsay, for having me this evening. I've been dowsing and researching ancient sites for most of my life, really, and I also run an esoteric college. My passion really is about the ancient ancestors and the sites that they left behind. And as Lindsay said, I discovered the elongated skulls of Stonehenge through dowsing. Yeah, actually. Because I was looking towards the Stonehenge, and normally dowsers ask a question and say, show me this or show me that. And I decided to turn it all on its head and do a spiritual form of land dowsing and just ask the landscape to show me what it wanted to show me, rather than me wanting to find something. And with that, it led me to the largest long barrow in Northwest Europe. And I thought, this is fascinating, because long barrows normally house numerous burial deposits, sometimes up to 100 people. So I thought, wow, the largest long barrow in the Stonehenge environs, this has got to have hundreds of people in it. But it didn't. Yeah. It just had one. And it was the skull of a woman that was originally excavated from it. And when I tracked her down to a university, it showed categorically that she had a very long skull going this way. So I called her the High Queen of Stonehenge, because I think to be buried in such a prestigious position meant you were powerful. You were either a high priestess or you were a high queen.
Yes. Yeah, especially a lady on her own as well, though, because they would, well, to me, I thought there would have been other people buried round them, but I suppose when they're buried on their own, it gives them that little bit more respect, I think, to have others buried in with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in the Neolithic, it was common, it was the burial practice to have communal burial. That's why that one was so unusual, because normally you would go into a huge chamber with lots and lots of other people. So it was unprecedented in the landscape. So I thought, well, this person is very important, and she had a whole community around her, because when I investigated all of the other longbows in the area, they too had long skulls. And why we have to ask ourselves now, why was this kept from us? This is our holy history of the ancient landscape, and why is it being denied by the archaeological community when clearly the evidence is there? And I bought a book out on it with photographs in, and if you can't classify a photograph from a museum as being solid evidence, then I don't know what is.
So do you think then, Maria, you know, with the elongated skulls, because they did find other skull shapes as well, didn't they? The rounded skulls.
Yeah.
So does that show that they lived together equally? Do you know, like by side kind of things? Or do you think these were different communities?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because yes, they did. They found round skull people, and they found people with long skulls. So it seems that there was two different types of human species possibly cohabiting in the Neolithic period, which is about 5,500 years ago. And it seemed that the first phase of Stonehenge phase 1, and we'll get into Stonehenge later, was in all probability built by the long-skulled people. And later it was redeveloped and redesigned by people with more round skulls, which were called by the archaeological community the beaker culture. But you know what I think about the long-skulled people is that when I mean, you're probably a sensitive yourself, Lindsay. You're probably a very sensitive person. You do readings and things like that. Well, when I was left alone with the long-headed woman, this amazing priestess, possibly of Stonehenge, I put my hands around her throat chakra, her third eye chakra, and then over her crown. And I really did feel that there was two kind of pulse points on her crown. So maybe the long skull people had two crown chakras, and they were highly sensitive people. Theoretical, okay, I haven't hung out with 5,000-year-old skulls like you do, but it really did feel quite poignant that there was this sensitivity area on the skull. So I think that they were highly sensitized to the land, earth energies, and trees, the living life force of Gaia.
Wow. Do you think there were, I mean, somebody's just put, Hercules has just put aliens question mark, humans question mark. What's your theory on that, especially with the different skulls, elongated and the rounded skulls? Do you think that I mean, I know people say, like with aliens and that, they've got different skulls. What's your take on that, Maria? Do you think it possibly could have been? Or do you think it's just, I mean, I suppose it's difficult to say, isn't it? We aren't going back and seeing it yourself, but.
Well, I think it is easy to answer, actually, because when you look to the Peruvian long skull people from Paracas, they were like more cone heads. Theirs kind of went up a little bit like that rather than like long skulls. But nonetheless, L.A. Mazzelli, he is an American researcher on elongated skulls. He did a DNA analysis of 16 of the most longest skulls in Paracas. And it came back, the DNA evidence, that they came from the steppes in Russia and migrated across to Paracas because they had red hair, the elongated skulled people of Paracas. So I think that the evidence so far does point to humans. We have a lot of interest at the moment in ancient aliens with a very famous TV show. I've just done a series on Gaia TV as well about it, and they all point to ancient aliens. But the evidence is clear. It is saying that there's human DNA involved. Until we go for every single skull and do independent surveys, then the question is still out there. But I think my money would be on a different type of human species.
Yes. Yeah. Joanne's put, oh my God, my relatives with red hair. Bless.
Go to South America, meet them.
Evening, everybody joining. Thank you for joining. If you've got any questions, pop them into chat either later on. Let Maria have a chance. But if you've got something you want to ask, please pop it in chat. We can always bring it up for Maria to answer. So what got you started then, Maria, in all this? Where did your passion come from?
It's like a lot of things, really. Everybody loves a mystery. Yeah. And I suppose my heart of hearts is I wanted to solve the mystery of why sites like Stonehenge were built, who built them, and when were they built? Because I think the archaeological narrative is flawed. Yeah. I think it's an interpretation. So really, it was always, and it still is today, like with a new book I'll be having out in about 6 months, focusing on Stonehenge and the pyramids and other ancient sites, is why were they built and who built them? Because I feel that they didn't write anything down. The ancient people did not write anything down. So you have to really be like a sleuth. You have to be like Agatha Christie and get all of these kind of clues together to point you in a direction of where is the truth in the ancient past. So that's where my passion lies, in solving a mystery and trying to get to the bottom of it, and to explore the land upon which Stonehenge is sited. Why place Stonehenge where it is? Why place the pyramids where they are?
I was just going to say that. Yeah. What is going on below the ground? Because there's definitely in certain places, I can't remember, I don't know if it was Jerusalem, but there's a place I could have even got this wrong, Maria, because me and places just don't mix. But I think it was in Jerusalem, but there's sort of like a church or a chapel, and there's something to do with the ground, and they're arguing over the ground, because apparently I don't know whether it was built similar to pyramid style, but where it was built, they're saying that there's something in the ground there that's very mystic. Like how you've got your Stonehenge. It's like a sacred ground, but there's two countries, there's like two, and they're arguing over who it belongs to. It's something to do with Jesus and that time going back, but it's all to do with this sacred land. And we're a documentary I was watching, so it might not even be in Jerusalem. I'm just thinking Jerusalem's the first thing that comes to mind, but it is that way, going out that way. But this were built, like you said, way back when pyramids were built, and everything else. And these were saying that they were looking for connections to the pyramids and to like Stonehenge and other places. Do you think then that there is a connection between Stonehenge and pyramids, and the same built for the same things? I'm not getting.
No, but they did say with pyramids, and I don't know. I don't. This is what I've read before. Pyramids were built where they were built because where they were built, the land could support the weight of the pyramids. If you look at other places where they built them, they've sunk.
Right. So, what's your take on that, Marie?
Yeah, John's right. When it comes to the Great Giza Pyramid and those pyramids on the Giza Plateau, they're built on solid limestone block for one. So that's very supportive. But I think we have to kind of look at what were the ancients looking for? What do the pyramids and Stonehenge and the Mayan pyramids have in common? The first thing that they have in common is they're all built, and this is geologically a geological fact, they're all built on very deep aquifers. Now, these very deep aquifers emit a lot of positive ions, and they change the electrostatic field slightly as well. And they emit a kind of different gravitational field underground water. Now, I've always proposed there are two types of underground water. The one that we know of is called groundwater. That's where rainwater falls from the sky and fills up the aquifers and the underground streams. But there's another type of water, according to esoteric water diviners such as myself, that is born within the womb of Gaia. And that produces a spiral pattern of energy called a geospiral, earth energy pattern. And the ancients were looking for that, and that's what they wanted to do. And I've just seen Sam pop up a question, say many ancient structures such as the pyramids have the same alignment as Orion belt constellation. That was discovered, the Orion link, to, for example, the Great Pyramids by Graham Hancock and Robert Breval. I've taken Robert Breval around Stonehenge. I've been his guide in the past. So what was above ground, the stars and the celestial energies of those stars and the sun and the moon, and what was below ground was very, very important. And it wasn't just the Great Pyramids that were aligned to Orion's belt, Sam. It was also Thornbury Henges in the Midlands. They too all aligned to the stars of Orion's belt, and the causeway aligned to Sirius as well. So this is a joint kind of effort from the Egyptians to the ancient Britons. So I think they were looking as above and so below. So they were looking for very deep water, for a spiral pattern, and then they would look for earth energy currents, and then they would look, for example, for lays that were coursing through them, and lots of other types of earth energy. You never get one thing at a power center. You get a spiral pattern, you get ley lines, you get a male current of earth energy, you get a female current of earth energy, and you get earth voltages. That's a power center. So if you just had, a church crossing by a couple of lays or a ley line, that's not a power center. It's about where it's all going on in the same place and above as well.
Wow. I think Patricia were putting Temple Mount. I think she thinks I'm on about Temple Mount. Multiple thousand rocks moved around. With no machines to help. I mean, them rocks.
It is.
I can't believe how it all connects. Sorry, Maria, go on.
No, you go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I was going to say, do you know, it still mind boggles me how the stars align with so much that goes on around us, do you know?
I have no idea what you said.
Do you know, no, you always say like it all lines up with Orion's belt and stuff like that. They're all to do with solar, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So I'm losing. I've been taking my tablets and I'm so confused, Maria. Honestly, I know what I'm meaning. I can't get.
I know what you mean.
So I do apologise.
No, I get exactly what you say. You've got an ancient site on the ground, and you've got these fantastic astronomical alignments in the heavens. That's part one. Now, with the pyramids, for example, that's like part one. All of the pyramids, those 3 pyramids, align to Orion's belt, but there's more than that. If you go into the king's chamber itself, that aligns to even more stars, the shafts of the king's chamber and the queen's chamber, to stars in Draco, for example, which is very well known. And even at places like Stonehenge, which Stonehenge is world famous for its alignment to the sun at the summer solstice, but that's not the accurate alignment, as any archaeoastronomer would tell you. The main alignment at Stonehenge above the heel stone is every 9 years. The moon would line perfectly with the heel stone, accurately to within a degree. The summer solstice alignment is actually 2 degrees out. And I've just seen Patricia, she's popped up and said, how did they find earth energy lines? That's a really, really good question, Patricia. My own take and answer on that is I think they either had their sensitivity with their elongated skulls and their extra chakra point. And also, if we go back to cave paintings, 6,000 years ago, then according to a dowser called Sig Longrum, there is literally a cave painting showing people how to dowse. It's a dowsing lesson. So I think that they used dowsing, maybe wooden rods, maybe a twisted rod like that, to locate the energies. And it's very easy to do. And like I say, they would have easily been able to do that. You had wells in the Neolithic. Well, if you've got a well, you're going to have to water divine for it, unless you suddenly sense that that water is there. So I think that they were being used in dowsing for thousands and thousands of years. And Cleopatra used to use dowsing to find gold. Well, she got a subject to use dowsing to find gold. So it's been in our history for a long, long time.
Yeah. Do you think they would have caught? Do you think over time it's been changed from the name dowsing to different? It's like was started as something else, and then over generations it's been changed to dowsing. Or does it? Is it when it, like you said, when it does go back to Cleopatra, does it stay dowsing then? Because I've not really checked that. I've not looked up history like that.
No, it would have been traditionally called divining.
Right.
That's dowsing. It would have been divining, and then dowsing became more of a popular word, from about the 1800s onwards, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, in our history, it is about the divining, and that's any type of divination system, and that would have covered it, sort of broadly speaking.
Yeah. We've got
So we've got the 12 strongest, largest skins on light from energy from Egypt back in 1670, when world lights up all round world. Got key from
yeah. Whisper
right.
Paradol. I think just put a question there. I think he's just saying that's why you've got the 12 strongest, largest skins from the light from energy, or from back in Egypt in 1678. Patricia, does dowsing rods connect with the energy, or is it the person holding them picking it up?
That's a really good question, and it's a bit of both in a way. So what's going on is the rods are picking something up, but without you interacting with it, you're not going to pick anything up. So it's about a relationship with you. I classify dowsing as a relationship with you, your rods, and the earth, Gaia. And the earth energies are a manifestation of Gaia's energies. So when we douse, it's not just finding ley lines, it's about, or earth energies, it's about interacting with them and creating a relationship with them, reconnecting to Gaia. That's dowsing at its most sacred.
Wow. So how long have you been dowsing then, Maria?
Oh, far too long.
Do you prefer to work then with the dowsing rods or the pendulum, or is it for you a different different things you'd use your rods to your pendulum for?
Well, I'm happy using my copper rods. I use copper rods, or copper base rods with a bit of nickel in, so they're not too bendy and pliable like copper, because copper relates to the goddess Venus, which is a feminine deity, which relates to Gaia. And women have about 30% more copper in their blood than guys. So copper works well for women, and iron tends to work well for guys, because they've got 30% more iron in their blood. So we're kind of coming into sync with our blood flow by using rods. And I'm happy to use a pendulum as well. And I also use different pendulums, like the Egyptian pendulums. You get pendulums for healing, like the Isis pendulum, the Karnak pendulum, the Osiris pendulum. And when I've taken people on tour to Egypt, for example, we charge all the pendulums up at the different sacred sites that we visit as we go to Egypt. But the Isis pendulum can clear energy because it's said to emit a beautiful white light. It relates to all of the colors of the sun, but particularly to white. So I would use a different pendulum for a different job, if you see what I mean. And I would use the rods for mainly earth energies with copper, because copper is such a good conductor. It really is, and it picks up on things pretty fast.
I want to start practicing with dowsing rods, to be fair. I mean, pendulum, I've got a few. My pendulum I do use, actually. If I'm working with energies, spirit energies, or energies around me, I tend to use the wedding ring that I wear, which would be my dad's. And because my energy's been on this from being younger, it comes quite strong. But then the other ones I've got, I do use them for different things. I separate them all. So do you know the deities? So we've got Gaia. Gaia's Mother Earth deity. So what are the other deities then, Maria?
It depends which pantheon of gods that you follow, for example. So if you're in ancient Egypt, then you would have Isis, you would have Set, you would have Osiris. For example, you would have Thoth or Soth, as it's often called in America, and you would have Hathor. They're all kind of some of the main gods anyway. And then, that said, if you were over here, you would follow, for example, maybe the ancient Celtic path with Ceridwen, the shape-shifting hag goddess of the Celts, and Mu, the sun god. And again, if you're in Rome, you'd be following the Roman deities. So I think it's like choosing which ones that you would want to work with.
Yeah. Well, do you? I'll let you read that one. My pronunciation is not very good.
Do you think Lemurian seed crystals are connected to Earth energy lines? Well, I think anything that grows within inside of Gaia, whether that's gold or crystal or anything, is connected to her heartbeat. It is connected to the energy system. And when we think about it, it's only when the disconnect comes with Gaia that things start to go wrong. So I think, yes, they're all connected, and crystals react very well to earth energies. They speed the earth energy up. Because if you go to somewhere like Arkansas, which is on the world's largest crystal bed in America, then the energies are totally and utterly enhanced. So I think, yes, it really does enhance the earth energies. And we've got another question now. Dowsing rods are used to find underground water. Yes, that's the most traditional form of dowsing. You're right. And that is the oldest form, especially with a Y-shaped hazel rod or a Y-shaped willow rod. And it's the easiest thing to find. It's so easy. And I found lots of underground water. I don't do that so much now. I don't do well boring now. The last water job I had was last year when we were out of the COVID situation, and I found an existing holy well that was lost in the property because it was going to become an energy centre. I don't really do that much water divining now. My passion is more with earth energies. And if it's a really good job like that, I might or might not take it on. It's as simple as that. But yes, you're right. Water divine is the oldest form of dowsing known to mankind.
Wow.
And we've got Patricia says, were the blue stones chosen for their energy or another reason? I just love these questions, and thank you for that. Yes, they were deliberately chosen. Why? The blue stones of Stonehenge, especially the spotted dolerite version and the unspotted dolerite version, because blue stones is a generic term. There's lots of different types of blue stones at Stonehenge, but they're just all called blue stones.
Yeah.
So the dolerite version, for example, Patricia, they are 3 times more magnetic than any other stone in the British Isles. So now you plug those stones into earth energies and bingo, you've got a lot of energy coming out of Stonehenge. So I would say, yes, they're chosen because they're more magnetic. And when you put them into earth energy, it's like rebooting up the energy field.
Wow. So with Stonehenge then, so the blue stone is at Stonehenge. Where else would you find that sort of energy in the UK then, Maria?
The blue stones came from West Wales. They've now found the 3 main quarries of Stonehenge, and they were discovered by the geologist Rob Eichser, working for the Riverside Project under the direction of Professor Mike Parker Pearson. And what they found was three main quarries. And Carngodog, for example, in Wales is where the spotted dolerite came from. The rhyolite stones came from Rossafelin, and the other main quarry, I honestly can't pronounce. It's so long and Welsh, but it does sound like Kerry Marchigon. But I'm sorry, Wales, anyone listening in Welsh, I just hide under the table.
They're used to be.
But then three main quarries, and they were really, really powerful bluestones.
Yes. Wow. So what's the history with Stonehenge then? For those that don't know, I mean, I don't think there'll be many that don't know the history, but Druids have a strong connection, don't they, to Stonehenge? So, yes. Yeah, so
the first history of Stonehenge goes back 5,500 years to the Neolithic. And what happened then, the Neolithic people brought 80 or so bluestones from West Wales to Stonehenge and built a very large stone circle of 56 bluestones with a diameter of a ditch and bank to be about 110 meters. That's Stonehenge phase 1.
Yeah.
And then what happened around 2500 BC in the Bronze Age, they decided we don't want that anymore. We want to get massive sarsen stones from the Marlborough Downs, and we want to build a lintled stone circle with a bluestone circle inside, with 5 great trilithons and what's called the altar stone. That's the Stonehenge that we're familiar with. So that was Stonehenge phase 2. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So Stonehenge has had many, many different guises, and we've got Steve here. Here in New Zealand, we have a tourist attraction called, oh, you're going to help me out here with how you
I think it's Etoria.
Etoria, well done. I think it is most likely made from grey wax stone. Do you think it would have any sort of power by association? Now, that's a really good question, Steve. If that ancient site is plugged into earth energies and has ley lines flowing through it, then yes, it's a power place. Because once the stones are rooted into the earth, it's like an acupuncture needle. Imagine my meridian line there, and you put a stone into that meridian line, then wow, you're plugged into a system. Yeah, that's what the ancients were doing. It was like acupuncture, putting the standing stones into these energy points, and then the energy would rise up. And I've proved this in one of my books, actually. The energy rises up the stone, and then the stone admits it. Now, that sounds quite fantastic. So I got Rodney Hale. He worked with other authors like Paul Devereux, for example, and we proved that by using state-of-the-art electromagnetic sensing equipment, where the energy was coming out of the stone could be detected. So they were plugged into that system, and it's provable. And more than that, we got the Hertz frequency coming out of the stone, and the Hertz frequency coming out of the stone was 18 Hertz. Now, that is, for example, quite significant because you hear at 20, roughly most people do. There's going to be exceptions. But I think the long skull people could hear the stones as much as see the stones at 18 Hertz.
Wow.
We've got another question here. I love Avebury stones, Maria. So do I. So do I. Are they more spiritual than Stonehenge? I think these days, Avebury is very a spiritual place, and I always consider Avebury my spiritual home. It contains the world's largest stone circle, which is 1,088 feet in diameter. You could fit 10 Stonehenges into Avebury. That's the difference in scale. And I think it is very, very a powerful place, Avebury, but it's also gentle. It's also healing as well. So I think Avebury is very spiritual, and I think Stonehenge is very dynamic. Stonehenge can take you up quite quickly. Avebury is more gentle. And Patricia asks, is 18 Hertz a healing frequency? 7 Hertz to 11 Hertz is more of a healing frequency, Patricia. And when we start to look at the Earth energy spiral pattern I mentioned earlier, geospiral, that is around that frequency of 7 Hertz. And it was found in an experiment when a healer pushes out the healing energy, and they're up on a console and it's on a laptop and they're seeing what their brain frequency is, it comes out at 7 Hertz. And when the person receives that healing, it's 7 Hertz. And Gaia admits 7 Hertz on some of her Earth energy currents and on her underground water. And we got another question.
To get some healing. Yeah. I need healing.
Don't we all? I'd walk there. So we've got another question here. So is it crystals or stones or both used for protection from negative spirit? And what's the best to use? Well, I think as long as your intent is there, and you could pick up a piece of flint from the land, you could piece up a piece of chalk from the landscape. It's your intent that you put into it, and your relationship that you build up for protection and something like that. So I would say intent is all, and any stone is powerful because they all have one thing in common, and that's the lattice crystal structure on the inside. Now that could be a stone at Avebury, or it could be a quartz crystal. Both of them have that lattice structure, and that lattice structure is like a semiconductor from Silicon Valley. There's no difference between an Avebury stone or a Stonehenge stone and a semiconductor made in Silicon Valley. And what are they made for? Wow. To transmit energy and to memorize something. So think of your stone as having that microchip, that semiconductor quality, and what you put into it is the most important thing.
Wow, we always say that, don't we, for intent though. When you do come, actually, when you come over near us, there is a Neolithic stone near us, and it's in some ancient woods. Not many people know where it is. You've got to know where you're going to find it. There's supposed to be 3. But we've only ever found the one Neolithic stone. But the energy around that stone changes. So it's sort of like a stone, but there's like there's nothing around it. It's like trees go round, like in a circle around it.
There's a clearing.
It's like a clearing round it.
Right.
So but you can actually feel different energies at different times when you go through. And we want to do some work with that stone, don't we? Just to see whether the energies, you can get the energies coming from that. But I wouldn't mind showing you and Paul when you come up this way, and taking you to have a look at that, because it's quite an interesting place, isn't it? Nothing on the site of Stonehenge and Avebury, but it's his own little stone.
Sure, so, it sounds interesting.
So there are 3 of them, but who knows where? Yes, there are 3 stones, but 2 are hidden and we can't find them yet. So with when I was watching one of your videos, you was talking about Stonehenge and Avebury, and obviously now Stonehenge is it's sectioned off now, so the public can't get up to it. I'm not sure whether they still allow guides to take you up, but as far as I know, you can't get through. Avebury, you can actually still get onto the stones, can't you? There, as long it's still a free place for people to go at the moment.
It is. I mean, Stonehenge, unfortunately, where it has a high volume of tourism and the way it's managed, it is cordoned off. And that's sad, because it was left to the people of Britain, actually. Same as Avebury was left to the people of Britain. These are our monuments. We must remember that. And Avebury is free by day or by night. You can go there anytime. And so are places in Somerset, like Stanton Drew. That's the 2nd largest stone circle in England. And places like Rollright in Oxfordshire, and the Cornish stone circles, which are plentiful. They're all free as well. And I think we need to think that, at the moment, if the tunnel goes ahead at Stonehenge, then that means historic England, under their old name of English Heritage, have total control of that landscape.
Yeah. Is there anything that can be done about that, Maria? Is there anything is there like a petition that anybody can sign from anywhere to stop that going ahead, or is it just?
Yeah, there is a petition, and it's run by the Stonehenge Alliance. So if you just put Stonehenge Alliance in, say,
we'll
Stonehenge
get it up and
or something like that.
Yeah,
you can they did have a petition. I haven't been on the site for a few weeks, but there's a lot of the archaeologists don't want it. They don't want the tunnel. Professor Mike Parker
No.
Pearson thinks it will cause irreversible damage to this sensitive archaeology in the area. It just seems historic England want to be hell bent. And they say, oh, it's to make Stonehenge really quiet because of the noise of the traffic. Half a mile north, you have the Royal Artillery and the Salisbury Plain Army Unit letting off bombs. And you go boom, boom every now and again. So I don't believe that it's about quiet, because it's on the Salisbury Plain.
Yeah. So Maria's
Will the tunnel
will the
disrupt
tunnel?
Stonehenge? Oh, sorry.
Go on, Maria. No, it's all right. Fine. Go on.
Will the tunnel disrupt the Stonehenge energy? Yes, I think it will. Anything. You see, to the ancient Chinese, where we get a lot of information about geomancy and feng shui and other sciences beside from, they documented Earth energy in 2200 BC, for example. And one thing they said was, if you amputate a dragon line, let's say that's an Earth current or a ley line, you make the site very, very dysfunctional. So when you start putting roads in, or houses, or tunnels, you will disrupt that meridian line energy system. It's as simple as that. And there was one good example of colonial Britain, yas, going to Hong Kong, for example. And they said they were going to build a new estate called Happy Valley. And the Chinese, with abject horror, they said, you can't do that. You'll be amputating a dragon line. But they were hell-bent on it. So they built Happy Valley. Within 5 years, it was infested by insects. It attracted really negative dark energies, such as drugs, etc., etc. And Happy Valley, certainly it was not. Now, if they listened to the ancient Chinese geomancers, they might have been able to get the housing estate in the correct position.
Yes. So that could have made a big difference, couldn't it?
Absolutely. We've got another question. It says, do you think they are doing it on purpose to disrupt the energy? Well, I think that they do know about the energies. That's my take on some of the people that are at Stonehenge, high-ranking people. I think they do, and I think they do want to maybe disrupt the energies, because if they didn't, then why not listen to the top experts like the archaeologists saying don't build a tunnel? And why don't they listen to the alternative community like you and I and the people listening? What's our opinion about that? Has our opinion been sought? No,
exactly.
It hasn't. We own that site. It was given to the people. Like Avery Keeler gave that to the people. And I think that's when we should voice up and say no.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, though. I think a lot of it goes back to a class society, and they think they're above everybody, a certain class, certain type of people. And as we believe in this energy and we believe about Mother Earth and different things like that, they're just not bothered.
Yeah.
It don't matter to them at all. So that's why they've got no respect for what other people think.
No. Too many people like that.
I think you're right, John, because even when you look at some of the authors in different disciplines, that they tend to be Etonians, and even if you look to the government, there's a certain type of person. And it's interesting to know, when you look at public schools, I live in a beautiful town called Marlborough. We have what's called the Marlborough College there, where Kate Middleton and a lot of people went there. You always have a mound. You go to Eton, you always have a prehistoric mound. So they were looking for these energy centers and placing the public schools above them and around them. And they involved them in rites and rituals and pudding clubs and things like that. So I think that they know about the energies, because is it just a coincidence then that all of these colleges have a prehistoric mound associated with them? No, they knew what it was about.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get polls up. Every time I try and click it, computer moves there. Woodhenge.
Yeah, Woodhenge is a wonderful site. It is contemporary with Stonehenge Phase 2. That's the Stonehenge that we're familiar with the lintled stone circles. And Woodhenge consists of 6 concentric circles of energy, really strong energy that is very uplifting and is very powerful. So this is how I see Woodhenge. You started at Woodhenge. You changed your energy levels there. You become uplifted. You feel really, really good at Stonehenge. Everyone that I've taken there, and I've taken hundreds of people, including Paul, there, they love the energy there. So I think you started there and then you went to Stonehenge for a deeper experience. You had to change your energy field prior to going to Stonehenge. Do you see what I mean? It's not just about arriving at Stonehenge. And
No.
same at Avebury. You get points at Avebury where there's a vortex energy, and there's right by that vortex energy, before you enter the sanctity of the stone circles, it is high energy that clears your auric field. So they were clearing themselves before they went in, so they would understand the stronger energy better. And that's what people like historic England just don't understand. It's not on their radar.
But it's over the red, isn't it? They're not. That's right. Do you know, that's so fascinating that you go one place and then to another. So I know this is it's not jumping really, but the 9 ladies, Stonehenge, Woodhenge that Paul's just said. Do these have ley lines or any energies underneath the earth that sort of like connect them all together? Are they all on certain ley lines underneath them, or how do they all seem to connect together? All the
they were looking for circular stone circle. They would be looking for particular energies that are either going to be earth currents or a spiral pattern that sets what's called the center of the stone circle. And then to connect a site to another site, that was where the ley comes in. So, for example, there's a ley that goes through Stonehenge, and it goes all the way up to Arborough, which is not that far from, the 9 ladies, not really. And then it goes all the way up to near the Ring of Rodgar in Scotland. So that's now taking energy from one site and putting it to another, to another, to another, interconnecting all of the emitted energies. And so that can be flowing around. But underneath the site, that's where you'd be getting your earth currents, your earth voltages, and other energies besides, creating that power place.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know this? I'm gonna have to rewatch this back because everything's just blowing my mind up in it. Listening to you is like listening to Paul when Paul's talking. It's like you get mesmerized by what you're saying, so it doesn't sink in till after I've rewatched it back. But
this is what the ancients were very aware of. They were aware of the earth energies in the land and where to live themselves, because other master dowsers that I have worked with and I've known have often pointed out the ancient people, that is, did not live above the earth energies and the ley lines because it's too amplified. And the research today has shown that if you live above ley energy or earth energy, it amplifies your emotions. So if you're happy, you're going to go to a high, and if you're low, you're going to go to a low. So the ancients looked for another type of earth energy pattern to live above, and avoided the strong energies. They would interact with them by going to the site and coming away. We have another from Scotty. If the energies are connected, could the tunnel under Stonehenge therefore affect other sites such as 9 ladies? Theoretically, yeah. Because if you're tampering with an energy system, if I then say my organs are all interconnected with my body, if I damage my liver, I damage my whole, don't I? Because I'm damaged. So I think that's very poignant and something that we should look for. You change one ancient site, you are potentially changing the energy system globally. Yeah. Now we've got Patricia, and she said, does underground water follow energy lines? Underground water, groundwater that the water board would look for, or you'd look to bore a well, doesn't necessarily follow energy lines because it creates its own energy, and it creates its own energy, which is called geopathic stress. So underground water produces geopathic stress. What's geopathic stress? It's toxic earth energy, and it's been long discovered for nearly 200 years now that if you live above underground groundwater, then you're more than likely long term to produce, illnesses and whatever is prone in your DNA, for example. So that's called geopathic stress, and that's underground water. So we do have to look to where we live. And if we do live above underground water, you need what's called a diffuser. You need something that's going to diffuse that energy.
Yeah.
And Scotty, wow, so there would be a much greater effort than just at the one site. You're feeding into a system, you're feeding into a network. There is no separation. Everything in the ancient world was connected. Yeah, every site would have been connected to the next site, to the next site, to the next site. And even when in the Christian era, they would look to an existing ley line, for example, that may have had a Neolithic site on, a Bronze Age site, an Iron Age site, a Templar site in the medieval period, and then the Christians used to put churches on them as well. So they've been added to and added to and added to, and then you amplitate that lay. You just go shoot a big road through it or something. It's going to cause disconnect.
Definitely.
Are some of the old churches placed along ley lines? Yes, they are. And not just ley lines either. So we're going to ley lines first then. Quite often, leys are considered masculine or feminine or neutral. Some of them can just be neutral. So let's say you've got a male line going through a church and setting the axis line. That means flowing down the kind of center of the church, and that's a male lay, then that church is going to be dedicated to a male name: St. Paul, St. Peter, St. Vincent. If it's a female, more lunar line, then it's going to be dedicated to Mary, Margaret, the Magdalene, etc., etc. So the gender of the lay can decree the gender of the saint of the church, for instance. But it goes much deeper, much deeper than that, because it was discovered in the 1980s by authors such as Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst that if you have a major strong lay like that, you've got a ley line, that pen, let's pretend that's a ley line. What they discovered in the 80s was two earth currents entwine that. One is male and one is female, and they're meandering like a mighty river around that lay, and they're called male and female earth currents. And major lay systems worldwide have those. So that's a lay system. So you can have a ley line by itself, or you can have a ley line associated with a male and female river of energy flowing around it. And I pointed out back in the 80s to the authors that discovered those energy systems, I think that the lay anchors in those energies in a long lost technology that was used in prehistoric time. And we've got another question from Paul. Does all the military training affect the energies in Wiltshire? Well, you've got to think, Paul, that it's of no coincidence that Stonehenge is surrounded by 16 military establishments. Facts, okay? That is a fact. It's a bit like Area 51 in America. The Salisbury Plain has no-go areas where you can't go. Oh, you just be taken off. It's called it's owned by the military. And you must start to think to yourselves, well, why is it worldwide, whether it's Sedona, whether it's England, you get three things in common: military establishments, ancient sites, vortex energy. And I did a whole show with the UFO hunters on that a few years ago. Yes, it affects the energies in a nutshell, Paul, because there are a condensed area of ancient sites on the Salisbury Plain that is like nowhere else in Great Britain, and the military own it.
Yeah.
Join your own dots there.
Elemental encounters. Andy's put, the world is a giant natural computer chip.
Yeah. I like that. Can I plug into it though?
Yeah.
Yeah, my brain.
Yes, I'm sure Andy won't mind. Andover is very charged. Andover.
Andover in Hampshire, I presume that is that Andover in Hampshire? Because that again, that had some ancient sites associated with it. Also had Viking sites associated with it. If that's the same
Wow.
Andover that we're talking about. And what I think the ancients were really doing is not only were they putting all of these energies together, ley lines, earth currents, they knew how to work with them. And not only did they put those stones into the acupressure points I've described, they knew that female earth energies were calming and soothing and meditative, contemplative, and they were, they have that kind of nurturing, calming quality about them. Whereas more of the male lays or the male earth currents, especially so, they give you energy. So they're great to go to after an illness if you're low on energy. You see what I mean? So the ancients would know how to work these areas. And by knowing the type of earth energy and decoding it, they could say, well, that stone over there is for that. That stone over there is for that. And so on and so forth. So each part of an ancient site would mean something slightly different to another part. For example, why did we forget all of this? We didn't forget it, Moira. What happened was the Neolithic handed the information about the earth to the Bronze Age people. The Bronze Age people handed it to the Druids. The Druids then, unfortunately, were under a lot of stress with the Roman occupation. They branched off into different kind of mystery schools, if you will, and then things changed. The Masons and the Templars got hold of the information and it became secret. So it's not necessarily that we've forgotten it. It was hijacked by the elite and then possibly even misused, but it was no longer known by the people, but the select few.
Yeah. Do you know, that's awful, though, when you think about it, because it's been something, like you said, that it's just been took away and hidden, and it's only like with people like yourself and others that go into the history and looking back and working with the energies and crystals and everything else, that it's more people are starting. I think more people now are starting to open up to the fact that there is energies out there, a lot more than what you'll be opening when you look back. But yeah,
yeah, I mean, for example, I really do feel what is happening is a remembering is happening. Over the past 10 years, especially, people are suddenly remembering that who they were, they from a past life, were they interacting with this place before, what was going on. So it's almost like for our culture at this moment in time, it's very poignant because we're waking up. And that's why a lot of people say we're awake and aware. And we've got another question of elemental encounters. The Tri of the Lays echoes power with three in lots, and lots of things, the Holy Triad, and three pillars, dark, light, middle, etc., and so forth. And yeah, even the Druids with the Arwen, that's the three shafts of light, their very, very sacred symbol was always in a triad. And when you look to places like Avebury, they are a triad. You get three stone circles. When you go to Stanton Drew, you get three stone circles, for example. So the number three did play out in design canon within the ancient megalithic building program. And where you do have the three, which is the ley and the male and the female earth energy, that is the sacred triad. And then that's what the ancient Chinese were looking for, the crossing point of all three, not just one or the other. Again, that's a power place.
Wow. Do you know?
I went to Egypt years ago. I love Egypt, and went to a museum there. Was that the Cairo Museum or the Luxor Museum? I was amazed they knew things in medicine and surgery long before US. What was your take on this, please, Maria? Nanny Lynn Mod? Well, That is a really good thing. Yes, they did. When you start looking to France, Stonehenge, for example, we know that in the Neolithic, 5,500 years ago, they were doing brain surgery because they were looking to the skull and they would trepan the skull, that's make a hole in it. But first of all, they used to think, oh, that was shamanic. It was all about releasing evil, epilepsy inducing demons. But when it was revalued recently at Devizes Museum by a curator there, they realized it could have been to release pressure on the head, or for even for a brain tumor. Also, they were very good at amputations. They had very good painkillers in the Neolithic because opiates, which we use today in hospital, opiates were being used in capsule form in the Neolithic as well. So I really do think that they were master surgeons, master astronomers, master mathematicians. We got another question from Patricia. Are there any places in Britain where the three cross? Yes, there are lots and lots of places. The first place where all three cross is Carnarvon in Cornwall. Then if you go up the St. Michael ley line, they come together again at a place called St. Michael's Mount. They come together at Glastonbury, Avebury Henge, and then as you're heading towards Norfolk, they cross again at the big abbeys that are found on the St. Michael ley there, like St. Edmund's as well.
Wow.
So they feature all the time that sacred triad 3. But that's just one ley system. There are other ley systems that have the sacred triad 3. So as you're going north to south, we're going east to west across Great Britain with the St. Michael ley. As we go north to south with the Bleanus ley, from the Isle of Wight to Inverness in Scotland, going all the way through the major places, you have Ellen, Bleanus, and the Bleanus line. So you have more than one sacred triad. There's lots and lots of major ley systems worldwide, as well as just in the British Isles. But my favourite place is either going to be Glastonbury Tor or the centre of the southern inner circle at Avebury Henge. Go there, feel the energies, get healed, get inspiration, get a download. Often people get downloads there, or just chill out and have a good time.
Yeah.
But the choice is there. I would just say, yes, sit down, enjoy the ambiance, and feel the energies, and you'll feel better.
I mean, you've been to Nine Ladies, haven't you?
I've been to Nine Ladies, yeah.
I can't get to Nine Ladies because obviously I have to use a mobility scooter, and the pathways, they're not capable to get me to these places. But the Avebury one, could a mobile scooter get actually on there? Obviously, it'd have to be a day where there's no rain, obviously, because it's grass, isn't it? But would I be able to get round the stones on the scooter or a wheelchair even?
I think, you would have access to certain parts quite easily, because I've taken a woman in a wheelchair around on a dry summer's day. Yes, I think you could. And a friend of mine that's got a mobility scooter that lives at Avebury and comes down on her scooter can have access to certain parts, which are really lovely sections anyway. So I think that you would go into two of the main sections very, very easily on a good dry day. Yeah.
Wow.
So go for it. So we've got another one. We've got Linz and John. The park behind us is especially on that north or south lane, the Bleanus line.
Wow. We did an investigation there. I mean, Andrew and Becca, who were elemental encounters, they work with the elemental energies. So they've worked a lot in their area, and we went up and we did an investigation. So interesting what comes through. So yeah, I didn't realize that were on the north to south ley line. That's right, interesting when you think energies that you were getting through there, as well, especially nature spirits you were getting through. Do you think then, Maria, I mean, with investigations and paranormal side of it and all that, Maria, what's your take on that? What's your take on the paranormal side of things, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. Well, when we go back to have a look at some of the research done from the 1970s onward with master dowsers, such as myself, you had a very famous chap called Tom Lethbridge. And what Tom Lethbridge noticed about paranormal activity and certain underground energies was that wherever you have underground water, it acts as a memory, it holds on to memory. And when we think about that, homeopathic medicine is based on that principle. Water has memory. So if there's an impact trauma event, for example, something very traumatic has happened above the underground water, it just memorizes it and plays it out and plays it out and plays it out. So it's a part of a paranormal investigation. It's not to be everything, it's an element
it's an
to it. But I think, he was pretty right. He investigated, place after place after place and found that the trauma was being held by the water, and that once you started to cleanse and heal the water, you could start to cleanse and heal the environment, so to speak, which is a nice take on it.
It is a nice take,
I feel, because we're thinking about the underground water and cleansing the area, and I'm sure with intent, if we go back to intent, then that all helps to assist to raise the vibration of the area.
It does. Right, I'm going to change topic completely now. I'm sorry. When it comes to crystals, Maria, working with crystals and using crystals for energy. What are the best crystals to use? So if it's somebody wanted a healing crystal or something to calm them down, kind of thing, what would be the best crystals or the best ways they can do it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, if we think to what were the ancestors using, for example, rather than what modern day New Age people use, just to take a different take on it, because I'm coming from the megalithic past, so it gave a bit of different take. One of the most believed to be the most healing ones is the blue stone of Stonehenge, because even in the 12th century, it was recorded that no stone at Stonehenge was not healing, because they were all resonating with the healing energy. So one interpretation of Stonehenge, it was the healing lords of its day. So I think blue stone is very, very healing. And then, good old fashioned stones like your black tourmaline that can kind of absorb negative energies and things like that. Whereas when we come to the granites and we go to Egypt, for example, they got a lot of what they thought was a healing, high-powered, high-frequency stone. It's granite from the Aswan, and it's a pink kind of granite, very close to to the kind of but specked with like the color of rose quartz, if you imagine that. And that's what they thought was really very intriguing. So they would use massive stones and put them all together within different layers of layering as well, which is called orgone layering. So I think we can look back at that and think as well. I truly do believe as well that anything can be a focus for healing energy. Anything can be a focus for you. You just need to think
just
about
whatever.
So the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska fascinates me. Well, I mean, it does. I mean, even in Alaska, you have things like HAARP, weather modification that was happening all around as well there. And a lot of people think, there's entrances to the earth there, and that's going on in Alaska. And again, you find military presence in these places as well. And again, is that a coincidence?
Yeah. Wow. So for you then, Maria, if you take Avebury out of the equation, where in the UK would your 3 favourite places be? Where would your 3 favourites? And it's difficult when you get asked that question, but probably not your favourites, but 3 of the ones that have a special meaning to you.
Well, one of the stone circles that has a special meaning to me is the Rollright ring in Oxfordshire. Because when a stone circle retains its circular shape, which unfortunately Stonehenge is ruinous, it's lost its circular shape, and Avebury Henge has lost its circular shape. For example, Stonehenge, Rollright rather, still has that. And occultists have always known that the shape of the circle alone gives out energy in concentric circles all around it and within it. And that's called form energy. So any circular shape generates form energy, and a form energy can help us to manifest that which we want of our intent. So when you go to a stone circle proper that has its circular shape, you can then start using it as it was indeed meant to be. And also, Rollright is the most investigated stone circle of the British Isles. You've had lots of scientists go there, psychics, dowsers, you name it. And one thing they kept saying was occurring at Rollright was strange manifestations, such as large dogs and time distortions and things like that. So I think it's very, very powerful, but it's dark and light entwined. You get a lot of dark workers go there, and you get a lot of light workers go there as well. So it does have that kind of edgy feel to it sometimes if there has been some inappropriate activity.
Yeah, from dark work. Yes. Well, we're light workers. I called us polite workers, and I was trying to think of the word, and it's light workers. But yeah, I mean, this is just so fast. Honestly, Maria. Everybody's saying, comments are coming in, and they're all saying how much they're loving this, and it's just fascinating. Go on, you were going to say a question. Oh, I thought you were going to ask something.
No, we're looking where that Rollright stones were.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Sorry, I didn't say, John. My apologies for that. It's a stone circle of limestone, beautiful stones actually in Oxfordshire. It's not that far from Chipping Norton or Stratford upon Avon, just to get a kind of, it's probably about 30 minutes from Stratford upon Avon, but very close to a town called Chipping Norton, again associated with the military complex.
Yeah. Everything's associated.
Is that 124 hours? Can you get to that any time?
Yeah, exactly. It's open to the public, and it's a beautiful stone circle that is exceptionally powerful for manifestation.
Might go there after lockdown. It's about 2 hours for us.
I would say go there.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Based on what you said about intent, is it the same with holy water or blessed crucifix for protection against negative spirits? Well, exactly. To a dowser, if you have water and you have salt, and both are blessed and both are sacred and intent, as Lindsay is saying, then you've got an amazing formula. And the ancients were doing that at sacred sites, because there's one stone on private property not that far from Avebury, which was like a Neolithic font, whereas the ancients made this beautiful sink area and threw 5 feet of solid sarsen stone, which is second in strength to diamond alone, a pentagram carved through 5 feet of stone for a plug hole, if you will. And so they were using water to be holy, be sacred. So these rites go way, way back to the pagan past, long before the Christian fonts of churches. And we've got Sam here in Jersey. We have many dolmen sites, many of which are stone circles, and even have, I'm not very good at pronouncing this, La Hugby passage grave, which is 6,000 years old. Yeah, that's Neolithic. So when you go back to the passage graves, and you go to the equivalent of the long barrows and the cairns in Ireland and Scotland, they are the oldest monuments in the ritual landscape. So they, in my understanding and research, were built by the long-skulled people. That's who's associated with the passage graves that you're talking about, 6,000 years old. And their skulls were taken out many, many centuries ago and placed in cardboard boxes in places like Oxford and Cambridge and the museums, and basically squirreled and hidden away. And it wasn't until a researcher such as myself came along and rediscovered it. And how shocking is that someone like me did that when it should have been the establishment telling us and teaching us this at school?
Yeah, totally agree. There's so much though that we're not taught or we haven't been taught over years, that you said that's just been like, it's like it's our right to know, isn't it? But like you say, it's not been told to us. Yeah.
Exactly, and the archaeologists could come up with a model. It's not necessarily the truth. It's an interpretation that they have ascertained through different disciplines, be that radiocarbon dating, oxygen isotopes from the teeth, and things like that. It's just an opinion, and our opinions are equally as of worth and merit than Professor Parker Pearson's from UCL. My personal humble opinion.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to say, do you know when you're going to say something and then I forgot what I'm going to say on tip of my tongue? I'm going to ask a question and it's gone.
That's okay. That will come back. And when we think, you were mentioning earlier, Lindsay, when we were off, that for example, you'd watch the the TV program on Stonehenge with Mike Parker Pearson.
We did, yes. Because just before we went live, because I said to Maria, this one might come up, so I just wanted to ask her and make sure. And it was just because you hear so many things about Stonehenge being rebuilt or redone, and there was something to do with the stone inside where that had been cracked. So do you want to explain that, Maria, for them that?
Yeah, for example, in the 90s, really from the turn of the last century, when you looked at antiquarian pictures of Stonehenge, the great trilithon was leaning like that. All antiquarian drawings show that, whether it's William Stukeley in 1724 or whether it's Sir Richard Colt Hall about 100 or so years later. It was leaning like that. The first stone to be re-erected by Colonel Hawley at the turn of the last century, he pulled the Greater Trilithon up like that. Yeah, that was the first kind of program of restoring Stonehenge, because if you go back to the before and after photo shots, they look completely different. And in the 1950s and the 1960s, that was the biggest reconstruction program at Stonehenge under the directive of Professor Richard Atkinson and Professor Stuart Piggott. And stone number 60, which is quite a famous stone at Stonehenge, it was one of the trilithons, of the 5 trilithons. They created a horseshoe enclosure within the center of Stonehenge. Well, it was leaning slightly like this, and they thought, well, it has to be perpendicular, and it has to be put back up. So they got cranes to pull the stone up like that, and as they pulled it up like that, it cracked all the way down. And so what Richard Atkinson had to do was infill it with concrete. But there was locals were around at that time watching it, and some of the locals claimed that as it kind of went and it went down, that it let out a very strange sound, almost like a scream.
Wow.
So whether that is modern day folklore or whether that is a truth, I really do feel the stones have very strange energies associated to them, because one of my most unusual experiences within a stone circle was once a year I take a couple of big groups of children round from Canada. It's about experience in England, and they do Avebury and Stonehenge. Well, they arrived late. I was in the centre of the southern inner circle, and all the children running across and calling me like this with their hands. Come over here, Maria. Come over here. Well, not saying Maria, but come over here. Come over here. And I thought, well, what are they all on about? Because I walked through the stone circle, went over the other side, and bear in mind, we're on the edge of a large thunderstorm. Yeah. So it'd been raining. And you know, when the water just drips down your nose and you lose the will to try and look good?
Yeah.
Like that. That's how I was on that day. And the kids were really excitable. And I understood why. The stones in the outer circle were humming. And they were emitting this really strange sound. But the stones I'd walked through in the southern inner circle weren't making a sound. So that's why they were calling me over. And that's been one of the most fascinating sounds I've heard emitted from stones. Intuitively, nobody was touching the stones. Looking back, we were just, mesmerized by the stones, but nobody touched it. And I think that was probably quite a wise thing to do, because who knows, what would have happened.
Well, it does make you think what could happen, what could have. I mean, I'd love to witness something like that and hear that coming.
Yeah, but me had a touchstone.
I know you'd a touchstone, but then it reminds me of that film. What we've just been watching, that what is it? That Scottish one. That film Highlander, is it?
Outlander.
Yeah,
Highlander.
And she touches that stone when it's humming. He'd be like that, and he'd probably go through. I love that program. But yeah, that's what I'm going to ask you. Now it's come back to my mind. You know, when you said about things being seen within the stones, like things from the past, and that happens out of the stones, but do you think that happens on ley lines? Because there's places like in I think it's Liverpool. There's a street in Liverpool, and people have said that when they're walking down, they time slip. Time slips. Do you think the time slips are to do with the energies and the ley lines and anything like that?
I think time slips, that with the research to date, are more active with portals. And so when you've got a really condensed area or strong vortex energy, like at places like Sedona and elsewhere, that's when I think you get the time slips. And if there's a ley going through it, it will add to the energy, but they are like kind of portal gateways, which can change dimensions, even, or certainly they do play around with time, and that has been documented at various different places, especially where you get strong vortex energy.
Have you ever sat in when you've been sat in stone circle, when you just sat, like you said, relaxing, meditating, and you've closed your eyes? What experience have you personally had? I know you've just mentioned that one with the humming of the stones, but what's been some of your experiences that other than that you've experienced within stone?
Well, I think really the stones know what you want rather than you know what the stones want. So for example, by that, let's turn it around. When some people go to Avebury or Stonehenge, a stone will attract them. Yeah. And they will go to that particular stone. And it's almost like the ambience, the energy, the guardian spirits there, or whatever, all can combine to know what that person needs, whether that's healing, whether that's information, whether that's spiritual expansion, higher consciousness. I think I really do feel it's the place that gives you something, whereas we tend to go somewhere and we think what we're going to get from it, and quite naturally so. That's what we're kind of brought up to do. But I think within a stone circle, everything changes and gets thrown around a little bit, and they know what you want, they know what you need, and that's the beauty of it. That's the magic of it.
Definitely. It definitely is. I keep saying, and I do apologise. I've not been very well. I mean, I've been in a lot of pain since yesterday. So I've took tablets, and when I take my tablets, it makes me a bit ditzy. I'm ditzy anyway, Maria. You'll get to see that in time. But it's like I can remember. I'm trying to remember what I'm thinking, and I'm not thinking. You could speak.
I'm fascinated.
I know you're fascinated. No, it's gone again. I am so sorry, Maria.
That's okay. Because one thing we were talking about again when we were off air is on that program of Stonehenge, with Mike Parker Pearson. He said that there was a dismantled stone circle, Warnmorn, in the west of Wales, where some stones were dismantled and taken to Stonehenge and re-erected at Stonehenge. Now that is a theory. Okay, now that theory comes from the fact that when they did go to Warnmorn, that there are some stones that are very similar, but they're unspotted dolerite stones. And at Stonehenge, out of the 80 or so blue stones, you have 3 unspotted dolerite stones. So when they're describing, they dismantled this stone circle, no, they took 3 from that stone circle. That's the fact of the matter. They took 3 because they're unspotted dolerite. And like I said earlier, you have 3 types of bluestone. The most common is the spotted dolerite. So now, this is what the archaeologists do. They put that program out on Stonehenge, old hat. They knew that since 2010. That's the first time they exposed that, Then they went back in 2018 and did some geospheres and other things that was proven inaccurate anyway. And then they came out with that idea. And now they're looking for, were there other sites being dismantled? Not just Warnmorn that they made out on that show. So they're looking for maybe stone circle after stone circle. And some were quarried from Congodon and the rhyolite, beautiful rhyolite quarry, which is not that far from a beautiful site called Pentre Ifan, or Ifan as it's sometimes said, which was shown on that show to be that huge dolmen with a massive 16-ton capstone that was made from Pembrokeshire slate. And it was Rossafelin, which was the rhyolite quarry. So we know that there were 3 quarries. We know there were some stones dismantled for Stonehenge, but to say all of them, well, I think that's not the case, because why didn't they take all of the stones from Warnmorn and re-erect them at Stonehenge?
Why do you think that they do this? Why do you think that they make the tell these lies that is it because they know something we don't know? Do you know? It's just I don't get the why they are.
I think really, we're coming together as a movement, the alternative people, over the past 20 years or so.
Yeah.
And the spirituality is growing. People's third eyes are awakening, and there's a strength in people for spiritual power and truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the establishment doesn't want. They don't want the kind of power left in the people. And when somebody unaware, I mean, you're aware, you sound, you've been into these subjects, etc. Let's take somebody that never has. Okay.
Yeah.
Just walks from the street. Just bought his, sandwiches from Tesco and decides to go and sit with them at Avebury. Bang, he could change like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so I think these ancient sites, people from all walks of life, rich or old, young or poor, switched on or not switched on, knowledgeable or not knowledgeable, it doesn't matter to a place like Avebury Henge.
Yeah.
They will give what you feel that you should need. Now, when we think about somewhere like Avebury Henge, it could contain, back in the Neolithic period, up to 2,000 people. Can you imagine 2,000 people, switched on people, suddenly bang, having that moment like that? That's the power of ancient sites. And I think if a group comes together, like-minded, intent, we were talking about intent is all, if you will, to coin a phrase, and then you put those inside of Stonehenge, that's magic.
It is, definitely.
things start to
the
change.
energy. Yeah. I wonder whether that's why they sort of like stopped. I mean, I know that, like you say, at Stonehenge, they've actually stopped them gatherings happening. And I wonder whether that had something to do because of the energies, because it was opening up to people, or people opening up it within that circle, do you know? Same in America, government hides everything, any possible alien proof. But yeah, it's crazy to think that. In fact, it's a beautiful thing to think that you could all be stood in that place and you'd all be having different experiences. Not one would be the same experience because, like you said, the energy in the stones would give you what you needed. I want to go. I want to go. I think over this last year or so, I think a lot of people are opening up on different spiritual levels. Anyway, just because it's like, for me, the earth, the animals, the trees, the grass, it's like they say, it's going through healing processes. We see animals where we didn't see them before. We're seeing different things. So to me, I think the earth at the minute is doing a cleanse. People might say I'm mad or daft or whatever, but to me, it's as though the energies of like. It's just taken up, and we're just having a big cleanse within the earth. Anyway, apparently fluoride closes our third eye. Yeah, it's in our toothpaste and water, even bottled water. Without going down the conspiracy route, I believe we are being kept docile, says Claire.
Yeah, I agree, Claire, and not just that as well. You know, water has memory. So if you, I mean, I the only straight job I've ever had in my life is working for the NHS for about 12 months. I think that's the only. After that, I just went completely alternative, and I've been like that for over 36 years. But when coming from knowledgeable of sacred water divining, when people were being prescribed RT, chemotherapy, that goes into the water. Water has memory. It holds on to the bad as much as the good. We need to be very clear with water and to really reprogram it if you're using tap water and set your intent for it to be healed before you drink it. Because it has chemicals in it, as we know, not just fluoride. It has drugs in it because it's memorizing all of that. So just get your water, pour it into a bottle, put your hands around it, reprogram it with love and light and health and things like that. And then the water will bang, it will start to change its frequency a little bit. Emoto proved that. Google Emoto's work on water. And just by putting a little bit of love into it, it will change its molecular structures on the inside. And he spent a lot of time taking photographs of these. And if you play nice music around water, it resonates to that. So I say to people, take back control of your water and just put love into it before you drink it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So much mystical energy in North Wales too. Areas untouched by modernisation. It's natural and is as it was way back when, from Monday.
Yeah. Yes, North Wales has some beautiful, beautiful stone circles. One of my favourites is called the Druid Circle. And up until relatively modern times, one of those stones, if you imagine you've got a megalith like this with a carved out area, like an indentation. Do you see what I mean? It's slightly carved out. They used to place just right for up to a 3-month-old baby. So up until modern times, it was believed to give healing, strength, power. And if you put your baby in there, which many people did, it would give good energy to the baby. So I think, in the folklore that has been handed down to us over the years is ways in which people were using these stones. So that stone circle in North Wales is a gem, and it's a gift from our ancestors to humanity today. And even if you put your hands in it like that and kind of, put your head down, you feel this kind of embrace of energy entering into your whole higher chakras. You've got your head in it like that, if you see what I mean. You've got your throat chakra, your third eye, and obviously the crown chakra that really do feel activated.
Yeah. Lindsay, do we need another asteroid to come clean the planet again? Yeah. Yeah, but leave us on it.
I know the ancient stone sites, obviously there's a lot of energy and everything and how they were built. But you know, more modern ones like that Druid's Temple in Harrogate, now that's less than 200 years old. Were that built with same principles, or was that just totally different? Was that just, is that just a folly?
Yeah, exactly. In my opinion, John, there's some modern stone circles around the Avebury environs on private land built by, farmers and the wealthy people, for example, and they're energetically speaking, they're just dead.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the awareness of the where to put them. And that's what our ancestors had. They knew exactly where to put these stone circles in the power places, switched on into the grid, into the ley system, beneath the waters of the earth, and on Gaia's meridian line and earth energy points. That's what was lost in modern day construction. I mean, you have grid lines, for example. There's one grid system that was used especially so by the Knights Templar and by the mystery schools. And the crossing point of those grid is where they would put the pulpit in a church. And when you go into a church normally and you look right the way down the aisle, so to speak, normally on the left-hand side, you have the pulpit. That's sometimes on the crossing point of those two lines. And those two lines are said to activate the throat chakra. So the pulpit is where one speaks from, where one reads the Bible from. So even in churches, they knew about the sacred pagan laws, and they would activate them by placing these points like pulpits above them. And in universities, they put the lectern above it, for example, and lecture from there. So it's quite interesting to note that the grid systems were also activated by ancient people. We got a question from Steve. Here in New Zealand, we have mountain springs that emerge from the earth at their source. Would this be memory-free water that the earth has cleansed? That's a very intuitive, really beautiful question, Steve. And you're right. When we have these springs that bubble forth and they release the water, it's at its purest source. It's at the source. And that is considered very, very sacred water. And that's why you have, holy wells and springs renowned for healing. And quite often the springs are renowned for healing the eye. But let's think about that a little bit deeper. That's what's been handed down to us. Spring water as well, because it's pure, Steve, can activate the third eye chakra and open that. And when you think about it, in christening of the Christian way of baptizing somebody, they put a cross above the third eye.
Yeah.
Now, if you're at a spring, what the ancients did, they didn't just activate the third eye, because if you don't activate the rest of your chakra system, it's not going to be as effective. So what the ancients would do, I believe, is they would activate all of the chakras, and then the third eye would be completely active. And when you look at some earth energies, they pulse in places like a boom, a boom. And if you get 7 of these pulse points going down a ley line or an energy current, you can really work the chakra system through with those energies at places like, for example, Glastonbury Abbey, Wayland Smithy Longbarrow in Oxfordshire. And so I think, again, the ancients looked at these and said, aha, this is what we can do. And what the Christians did, they kind of forgot about the whole and they went for just the one.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know which churches that I know, like you just mentioned?
What? Don't get me started on churches.
No, I won't get you started on churches, but churches were built on pagan where pagan worship places was. Do you think they built them then on not only just to take the control, but also because they knew the energies to the places where they worship would have been stronger energies, or do you think they weren't bothered about it? They've done it for different reasons, if you know what I mean.
Well, it was under the directive of the Pope. Saint Augustine came to England. He was just told the directive: you can't change these pagans from gathering at these places. Build the churches above them, and maybe that would allow them to, interact with the church a bit more. But what the pagans did over here is they wouldn't want to go through the south door, which is how you enter a Christian church. They wanted to go through the north door because the power in the earth is in the northern quadrant. So what the Christians did then, they were saying, oh, that's called the devil's door. We have to brick it all up because the pagans were gathering there. And that's why when you go into a church, you often see the north door blocked up and rebuilt, because that's the power there. And then they started burying criminals in the north and really trying to disempower that element, which is earth herself, is the element in the north. And again, it was a way of disempowering and controlling the populace at that time. And then it's a bit like what historic English heritage are doing to Stonehenge. It's no different.
No.
Taking our place away from us and getting control on the site. And we need to wake up to that simple fact and reclaim it back. And if they do start the tunnel, which I hope they don't, I hope
they don't.
We all come together as a movement and we go there and we say no, no, no. Enough is enough.
I'm up for that.
You're up for going.
I'll be there.
I'm right behind you.
We'll be all there with mobility scooters going down. You'll walk. Permanent prams will be coming down. They would. I think there'd be so many though that would be there to support that though. Especially like the Stone. Everybody knows Stonehenge. Everybody's heard stories of Stonehenge. Even from us being little, Stonehenge has always been mentioned in some form or another growing up. So I think people would be behind saving Stonehenge. It's more so now than probably would have done a couple of years back. Because like I say, I think people are starting to wake up and see what's happening and what's taking place. What Sophie put, how can you tell Stonehenge have energy?
Yeah,
it's not coming up.
It's come up now. Yeah,
even stones at Stonehenge that have fallen, that's called a recumbent stone. So imagine that in antiquity it was stood up and it's fallen down. One of the most powerful stones at Stonehenge, which I have researched, has, and it's recumbent now, it's fallen, it has a ridge. It's called stone number 59, if you want to be pernickety and look it up on the internet. It has a ridge raised across it like a spine. I call it the spine stone, okay? Now, imagine when that was up and it's got a spine going down like this, it fits your spine perfectly when you lean against it, okay? Now, even today, when you put your hands over the spine stone like that, you feel heat generated. I remember security guards, you're not allowed to touch the stones at Stonehenge. God forbid you want a download. God forbid you want some heat. Can't have that. So they don't let you even touch the stones, even on private access. But along that stone, the security guard came over and said, "You're not touching that stone, are you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm feeling the heat." So he took off his gloves, went, yeah, like that.
Like they do.
Like they do, and suddenly felt, wow, I feel the heat coming through the stones. And that changed him. He said, "I can't believe that. I've been hanging out here as a security guard all this time, and I didn't." So I think some of the stones at Stonehenge are so powerful. That's why they don't want you touching them, and that's why they don't want going you there. You can instantly get a download like that from Stonehenge.
Wow.
We got another question. I'm drawn to the Kingston Russell Stone Circle. I have only seen it in photographs. What's it like there? Well, I presume you mean the Kingston Russell Stone Circle of Dorset, towards the south coast. It's a small stone circle. But it's still very powerful, and it's still a part of a huge metropolis of megaliths that were built in Dorset, which is on chalk downland, which is exactly the same as Stonehenge and Avebury. Incidentally, as is Yorkshire, the Yorkshire Wolds, you've got the largest megalith in Great Britain, in Yorkshire, in a churchyard, which is the Rudstone monolith. Google that, it's in the churchyard, and it's bigger than the trilithonic Stonehenge, and that's on chalk downland. So, Paul, when you go to the Kingston Russell Stone Circle, it's on exactly the same geology as the power places. And even though it's smaller, when we interact with these places and you go in the proper way, that's the mistake people make about ancient sites. They walk in there willy-nilly. Well, the ancients made avenues that led to them and showed you how to enter a stone circle. So at Kingston Russell, just have a look and a feel around where you feel that you should enter. And there's always a subtle clue. Even at Stonehenge, stone number 30 and 1, slightly bigger. You see what I mean? And at Stonehenge, at Rollright, you've got two little stones leading in like a short avenue. Avebury Henge, you've got a 1.5 mile avenue that led you down to the sanctity and led you in the right way to a stone circle. So that's something to think about before you visit a stone circle. How do you enter it? And if you do a little bit of research, which I'm sure you all can, Google is such a handy tool. Then before you know it, you can figure out how to enter it. And if you don't even have Google, just have a look around. Don't go straight into the site. Walk around. What does it look like? Is there a bigger gap here? Is it a smaller gap here? Are there avenue stones leading to it, etc., etc.? And then, but before you know it, you'll be entering it like your ancestors did, on the energy currents, flowing in with the energy, not going against the energy. Do you see what I mean? You're walking in harmony and flowing in harmony with the energy of the site. And how does it get any better than that? Not in megalithic Maria's world.
No, not at all. But again, like you said, you're feeling while you're walking around, you're also feeling the energies, aren't you? You're allowing the energies to come to you and guide you, rather than, like, say, you just rushing in and thinking, well, I'll just go this way. Like you said, it's taking that time, isn't it? Again, I think that's down to people to start doing that, taking the time before and stop rushing about. Talking about changing subject again, past life regressions, Maria. What was your past life regression?
One of my first time was 1988 when I first got regressed, a long time ago. And I happened to be dousing the St. Michael Lay then. A book had just come out by Hamish, and I knew him, and so I thought I'd go there. I just happened to be in Glastonbury and got regressed there. And I've got no sense of direction. If I go right, and I'm pointing left. Just to confuse the matter, got no sense of direction. But I kind of knew where stuff in Glastonbury was, where the Tor was, and where the well was, and things like that. And I'd never been there before. And it just happened on the way to Chalice Well. There was a kind of old-fashioned, board outside saying "past life regression, no appointment necessary." So let's knock on the door, like you do. And that was my first regression. It was about being in Glastonbury, and that was one of my kind of first ones. And then I've been, working with other past life regression therapists like Dolores Cannon, who has a different take on things. But at the end of the day, I think that the sites, if you'll just spend that time to attune to them, enter them correctly, then you will feel so much information given to you. It could be about past lives. It could be about a future life. It could be about a future time. because to an ancient site which has got vortex energy in, 9 times out of 10 they have, and then it's like we were talking earlier, time becomes not linear, it becomes circular.
Yeah.
And then we can work with those energies.
Do you actually do any, I mean, I know you've got like the college side to what you do. Do you do these kind of workshops where, people can sign up to learn from you or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, what I do is I run esotericcollege.com, and my college is fully affiliated now to the Association of Distant Learning Colleges, so I can take it to diploma level now. And you can sign up to any of my courses. I do Zoom group courses, private one-to-one, tailored courses, bespoke courses, and courses in, from past life regression to dowsing to home study as well. You could not even have me there. You don't even have to be in Zoom with me. You could do a home study or a video tutorial. I've now got tarot as a video tutorial, for example, for home studying.
Wow.
So just go to esotericcollege.com. But Moria's got a question here. Can you talk about the difference between the Egyptian pendulum and crystal pendulums? Wow, there's a big difference. Yeah.
Come on, Moira, we've got to talk it. Yes.
Wow, because pendulum dowsing is relatively modern. It really took off in about the 1960s onwards. It doesn't really have a long lineage. The difference with, sort of dowsing in medieval times is they'd be dowsing for a substance, not asking a question for a yes or no answer. That's called information dowsing. That's your crystal pendulum information dowsing. Yeah. And now, turn of the last century, imagine you're the Valley of the Kings. And the Valley of the Kings in ancient Egypt is obviously where King Tut was buried, and even they think now Akhenaten was there. But there was a French team there who were investigating for the French. There was German teams, English teams, Carter, Carnarvon of King Tut fame. It was a free-for-all, really, poor Egyptians. And they were basically ransacking the place and trying to take the gold away to their own country, shockingly so, as we know. But what they did explore was they noticed on some of the mummies in the Valley of the Kings was this strange shape above the heart chakra or over the chest area. And some French diviners that were into dowsing were looking at these and thinking, well, they're also on the walls of Karnak Temple. They're also on the walls of Abydos. They're also on the walls of the Temple of Isis. What's going on? So they took these devices back with them and made replicas. And with the Isis pendulum, which is the feminine pendulum, it's got like a bar with little bars going across and a point at the end, and it screws together in 3 parts. And you mustn't have it in full. You must always have it unscrewed unless you're using it. These are energy devices. Take away the word pendulum, and we're going to call them an energy device. This is how powerful they are. 2 French diviners called Chaumery and de Balazal. Now, they took it back and they realized that Isis pendulum emitted white light. And if you program it, all the colors and the esoteric colors of the sun, God, Ra. So we're going to go beyond the color spectrum of, the 7 colors of the rainbow. The ancient Egyptians saw all of the esoteric colors of their sun god Ra. Now, there's another pendulum, the masculine pendulum, called the Karnak pendulum. Very, very powerful. It'd be a bit like, on a Blue Peter program, don't mess with this at home. Yeah, they're sold as like, pendulums. You just ask yes or no questions through on those websites. It's shocking, really, because what Chaumery did, he realized that at a particular time of the day, you have a color frequency coming from Ra. And that color frequency is so strong, they believed it was the cure and cause of cancer. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, what they realized was this force of nature, this force of the sun, this force of the earth combined like this in the Karnak pendulum could generate this frequency. And what Traumary did, he said, okay, I'm going to fill an object with this light force. Like say, look, fill that glass up with the light force. And he was found 1 week later in his laboratory, completely mummified, with no smell of fermentation. So his partner realized that was this force in the mummification process, as well as taking out the organs and etc., is what they did in ancient Egypt. And they believed that was a force for good or for bad. It's like anything, we live in polarity on Mother Earth. So the Karnak pendulum can take out very strong viruses and dis-ease in the body, yeah. And the Isis feminine pendulum puts in white light and can cleanse water. If you have the Isis pendulum here, and I had some water and it was going counterclockwise, and if you go onto YouTube, I've got a video. We're just putting Maria Wheatley Egyptian pendulum dowsing, and that will tell you how to use the Isis pendulum in its most simple form. And let's say it starts to go counterclockwise against the water, it's taking out the toxins. Yeah. And then when it goes clockwise over the glass of water, for example, it's putting in white light and higher in the frequency. Now imagine you can do that on the body and aura and on things and places and charging up anything with the power of light, of Ra. That's the power of the Egyptian pendulum. Now the third pendulum, and again, we're going to go Blue Peter. Don't do this.
You know I'm going to. No, I wouldn't. Learn more first.
It's called the Osiris pendulum, and a good company will tell you if you're not using the Osiris pendulum, keep it in a Faraday cage or keep it outside or keep it wrapped up in a lot of tinfoil. Is the power of that one. It's jet black. It should always be jet black, the Osiris pendulum, and it is very, very, very powerful. And you need to you need to earth the Osiris pendulum. So if you're using it like that, you need a piece of copper going down to the ground. Do you see what I mean? To earth. And on some New Age websites, you get responsible sellers that give you that information, and on others, they simply
you don't, do you? Yeah.
So take your pick, But like I say, I've got a free video out there to how to use the Egyptian Isis pendulum, and you won't look back. I've trained people up in Egyptian pendulum dowsing, and my students get back to me and say, "Oh my God, my dad's leg is getting better. This is getting better. And I cleared the energy in my home, and that feels like it." And it's a handy little device to have, because when you work with the Isis pendulum, you are working with the consciousness of the sun that is billions of years old. And without light, without the sun, there would be no growth on planet Earth. Yeah. So that's what the ancient Egyptians knew. The sun god Ra emitted the esoteric colors of the sun that can heal or be used negatively. It's like anything else on this
the intent.
The intent is all. But they're very, very, very powerful. And I would say start with the Isis pendulum. She's gentle, she's kind, she's loving. She represents the heart chakra in the Egyptian pantheon of gods, and it's very powerful, and used with the conjunction of the 7 sacred Egyptian oils found in the pyramids of Saqqara. Then that's a very beautiful healing modality to get into. And Egyptian oils are one of the most powerful in the world. They really are, because they have the same formula that were used in the pyramids of Saqqara.
Wow. You do know that I'm actually going to get him to start Googling and looking for a pendulum for me.
You tried to get one that is called the double chambered Isis pendulum, and some of them are really not very good on the internet. Go to a good source to buy it. Don't get a cheap one from eBay for about a tenner, because they're not you see what Chaumy and de Belazal did. They got the right dimensions of it. and replica the right dimensions of it.
Yeah.
Some of the dimensions aren't right on there. So I would invest probably with about sort of 40, 50 quid for a good ISIS pendulum. And anything under that, I think they're just replicas from China and India. I'm not being snobby. I'm just saying it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know.
No, definitely. But you can actually feel the energy different when you're working with any kind of pendulum that's real to the ones that are the cheaper ones. Do you know when you actually feel the pendulum itself? Can you feel the different energies from a cheaper one to a more to the real from, so like from, I don't want to say fake, but from one that's not necessarily one that's not the real deal and one that is? If you held both them crystals, would you feel a difference from them, Maria? Would you be able to tell the difference?
Yes, I mean you can, but the better ones are hand finished off as well,
Yeah.
rather than machine manufactured. So the machine manufactured ones tend to be quite shiny looking brass. You should always get a brass one, not a wooden one, and that will stand you in good stead as well. I sell them on my website as well. I sell them at esotericcollege.com. And I'll have a look around and and go for where you feel that you want to get one from. Use your intuition, use your sense of love, your sense of passion, your empathy, and you won't go too far wrong.
Well, we're going to share all your links anyway on page, Maria, afterwards, so people can follow your links and everything else. And I'm sure you're going to be inundated by other people wanting to have you on an interview, and you'll be like, you'll be getting inundated like Paul does. Everybody going, can you come on and talk? Can you come on and talk? Because it's so fascinating, everything that you're saying. Are there any but I'm a bit dyslexic when it comes to words, so I'll put that up. Are there any reputable online retailers that sell crystals? Well, there will. There is, but like you say, it's doing your research and finding them. What's this one? A simple thought. Reading the power of crystals. Think how read years were powered way back. Crystals had to be used.
So a simple thought regarding the power of crystals. Think how radios were powered way back. Crystals were used. Yeah, and in quartz watches and many other things besides. Yeah, crystals are used for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. When you think of it. I've just noticed my Wi-Fi is really starting to flicker. So I hope it doesn't suddenly go. It gets a bit funny around about sort of streaming time, and it's really buffering.
Yeah, can see it. Well, what we could do, Maria, if you want, I mean, we have been on 2 hours, so I want to just say a big thank you to you for coming on and joining us and talking to us tonight, because it's been absolutely fascinating. And I'd love for you to come and join us again, Maria, and continue talking about everything else, and we'll get more questions coming in, and obviously now people know who you are, and with the stone circles and the sacred grounds and everything else, people know what questions to be prepping themselves for beforehand. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And it's been so intriguing. I can't wait to actually rewatch this back now, and and then I can start letting things sink in. But yeah, Lindsay, massive thank you to Maria. Thank you, Maria, from Rich. Yeah, everybody's going to start saying thank you now. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Maria. So we are going to say good night for now, and hopefully Maria will join us again, and I'll be in a little better state of mind. I'll not be slurring my words. I'll not be on medication, and I'll not be in as much pain. We shall see you all Well, I will on tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
We'll be on tomorrow. So I shall post dates and times, or John will, for tomorrow. So take care, my lovely. It's goodbye from us.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye
Bye.
from
Thanks
Maria.
for having me. Bye.
No problem, Maria. Bye, Doug.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
This.